Why are they waiting? The shocking scale of the UK's social care crisis revealed. Exclusive figures given to ITV News show nearly 10,000 people are in limbo, needing residential care or simply help to go back home.
So I think we're about only them few years left. Want to make the best of them, don't I?
Our UK editor Paul Brand will have the full story, the government's response, and we'll ask who's caring for the unpaid carers, the relatives who've given up jobs to look after their loved ones. Also ahead. The Prime Minister is forced to defend a vote which could see a Tory MP avoiding suspension for breaking lobbying rules.
In no other profession in our country could someone be found guilty by an independent process and just have their mates vote them back into the job.
The racism row at Yorkshire Cricket Club, accused of dismissing abuse as banter. The chair will face questions from MPs later this month. And the smile that says her ordeal is over. The 4-year-old Australian reunited with her family after being abducted from their tent.
I wanted to be absolutely sure it was her, so I said, "What's your name?" And she didn't answer, and I said, "What's your name?" She didn't answer again, so I asked her a third time, and then she looked at me and she said, "My name's Cleo."
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Nina Hossain.
Good afternoon. Imagine being told you need to be looked after at a residential care home, but there's no space for you. That is the reality for a rising number of people across the UK. Exclusive figures obtained by ITV News have shown the number of people waiting for some form of social care, a place in a care home or help at home, has nearly doubled, increasing by 91% in just 1 year. It's leaving families in limbo, people in hospital, and mounting pressure on the government to do more. Our UK editor, Paul Brand, has been investigating and joins me now. Take us through what you found out.
Yeah, Nina, this is a very simple story. There isn't enough care because there aren't enough carers, and we've been reporting on the unprecedented staffing crisis in the sector for months. But what we've managed to do today for the first time is to quantify that crisis. So the NHS releases routine waiting lists, the care sector doesn't. So what we've done is we've gone to 87 councils who provided us with data from across the UK and pieced together this picture of the number of people waiting for care. We asked for a snapshot on the first Monday of September this year, and we compared that to a snapshot on the first Monday of September last year. This year there were 5,000 people across those. Last year, there were 5,000 people waiting for care. This year, that has doubled to almost 10,000 people waiting for care. And across the country is a patchy picture, but there are some really acute crises in particular areas. For example, in Dundee, the number has gone from 32 to 227 in the space of 2 years. That's a 600% rise. And in Cheshire East, it's gone from 8 to 204. That's a 2,000% rise, more than a 2,000% rise. And as you say, the human impact of all of this is people can't leave hospital, there's no care for them at home. And I even went to visit 2 ladies in a care home in Leeds. They are trapped in that care home. They're well enough to go home, but they can't get any carers to do things like make their meals for them at home. So they are stuck in this care home where they have been for weeks. Do you think you need to be in a care home?
No. No, I don't. I can manage everything, you know. Now I can. When I get older, I suppose. When I get to 90, I won't be able to, will I? So I think we're about only them few years left. Want to make the best of them, don't I?
Back in your own home?
Yeah.
Well, I miss seeing my kids, my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren, and going out and enjoying myself with my family.
Clearly those cases are not unusual given the figures you've just talked me through. What's behind the staffing crisis in social care?
Well, Nina, it's a mixture of short-term and long-term problems here. So short-term, we've had the impact of the pandemic. Staff are tired. Some of them have chosen to leave. There's also the impact of Brexit, EU workers going back to their home nations. And then longer-term, the real issue here is low pay and poor conditions. And that is something that the government has got to get a grip on, because post-pandemic, we're trying to reassess the roles that really matter to us in our lives. And ultimately, carers are leaving faster at the moment than they can be recruited.
OK, well, Paul's going to stay with me because we're going to continue talking about this subject of social care now, as a charity has warned that unpaid carers, those who look after their loved ones, are being pushed into poverty. A survey by Carers UK found that nearly 2/3 of carers are using their own savings and income to cover the cost of looking after their relatives. A quarter don't have enough money to cover their monthly expenses, and 14% say they are relying on credit cards. Kerry Curtin gave up his job as a nurse to care full-time for his 94-year-old father, Rod, who has dementia. He now relies on his carer's allowance as his main source of income. I'm pleased to say he joins me now alongside Helen Walker, Chief Executive of Carers UK. Welcome both. Terry, if I can start with you. Financially, how difficult has it been giving up a full-time job and salary and now relying on your carer's allowance?
Just for clarity before I start, my dad actually doesn't have dementia. He's very, very acute with his memory. The difficulty with finances has just been absolutely horrendous. The impact on both myself and my dad has just been awful. Going from a full-time job in London with a monthly salary of £3,000 to coming down to the most minuscule benefit of £270 a month. It's a huge thing to have to deal with, both myself and my father.
Terry, apologies for that mistake earlier there. Helen, if I can move to you. Look, this is a really concerning set of findings when people like Terry are in this position. It must have a dreadful impact on some people's mental health when they're either racking up, credit card bills, or they're just simply not being able to afford the monthly expenditure.
Yeah, it is having a huge impact on people's mental health and well-being, because they're worried about their finances. But it's also got much longer-term impact. So we're almost creating a cycle of poverty here, because, Terry has given up his job to look after his dad, so he's not paying into his pension. He's not able to save money. And so longer term, we're going to find that people are going to have to look after Terry, and he's not got any funds to do that. So it's not just a short-term issue here. And the pandemic has made it really difficult for unpaid carers. As your report showed, there just simply isn't the care out there. So unpaid carers have had to step it up again and are doing a huge amount of unpaid care just to prop up a crumbling health and social care service.
And Helen, that was actually something I wanted to ask you about, was that these are two separate issues here: unpaid carers who look after family members often, and paid carers who often obviously work for care companies, but they are related. And as you said, one's having an impact on the other. But do you feel as if it's become particularly acute over the past year or so?
Without a doubt, it has. Over the past year during the pandemic, there's been a fear factor of having people coming into the home. So that's been one of the things. There's not been enough care workers through all the things that you described, but also through ill health themselves. And unpaid carers feel very much that they're doing this behind closed doors. They're not valued, they're not recognised, and they don't have enough money to even survive, never mind pay for all the things that they need to, with the increased cost of living, with fuel bills going up. They need to have the heating on for the person that they care for. There's just a whole list of things that unpaid carers are really struggling with. And you're absolutely right, the two are interlinked. We need social care reform quicker than it's being planned at the moment, and we need some funds into unpaid carers as soon as possible. Because as Terry said,
no
short-time
fix for this by the sounds of it. Helen, thank you very much, and Terry, thank you very much for your thoughts and your experience and for joining us. We're looking at a problem that isn't going to go away anytime soon. What has the government's response been to everything we've been discussing so far today?
So we've got to give the government some credit. They are investing in the care sector. For example, they recently announced £162.5 million for recruitment up until March. There was also money in the budget for councils who commission most of the care, but the care sector as a whole feels as if that will just allow them to stand still. Prices are rising, we're all paying more, aren't we, for energy, etc. Prices are rising, they need to keep up with that, and the money is not enough to allow them to pay carers more and bring staff in. Though the care minister said to me earlier today that she doesn't actually think pay is the biggest issue.
First of all, they need recognition and value. That's the most important thing for anybody in any career. You know, I've worked for many years.
More important than their pay?
I think it is, actually, if you look at all the evidence. The most important thing for anybody in any workplace is for actually feeling valued and feeling recognised for what you do.
Well, there's no doubt that carers really care about their jobs, but they do also care about their pay. They've got to pay their bills. And I think until that pay increases, this crisis is just going to continue.
Paul Brand, thank you very much. Thank you. Moving on now, and Australia is celebrating after a 4-year-old girl who'd been missing for nearly 3 weeks was found by police. It's believed Cleo Smith was taken from a tent on a family camping trip. She was found in a man's house. He is now being questioned. Cleo's mum said their family is whole again. Chloe Keedy has the story of a remarkable rescue.
In the middle of the night, in a small town in Western Australia, came the miracle the whole country had been desperately hoping for.
Cleo, my name's Cameron. How are you? Are you okay? We're going to take you to see your mummy and daddy, okay?
Safe in the arms of a policeman, a little girl who had been missing for nearly 3 weeks. 4-year-old Cleo Smith disappeared while she was on holiday with her parents. They were staying at a campsite on the coast of Western Australia when she vanished overnight from their tent. She was finally found 50 miles away in her hometown of Carnarvon when police raided a house and found Cleo sitting alone in a room.
It certainly looked like Cleo. I wanted to be absolutely sure it was her, so I said, "What's your name?" And she didn't answer, and I said, "What's your name?" She didn't answer again, so I asked her a third time, and then she looked at me and she said, "My name's Cleo." Not long after that, got into the car and called Cleo's parents and said, "We've got someone here that wants to speak to you."
Cleo was taken to hospital for checks, where she was photographed smiling and waving. A sense of joy was reverberating across the whole country.
Cleo miracle. The 4-year-old girl missing for 19 days, found alive and well.
A seemingly happy end to a case that has gripped Australia for the past 18 days. During an increasingly desperate search, police interviewed more than 100 people at the campsite and offered $1 million reward to anyone with information.
If you know anything at all, call the police, because we want our daughter back and she wants us. We need her home.
Today, Cleo's mum posted a message online that said simply, "Our family is whole again." Police are questioning a 36-year-old man in connection with Cleo's disappearance. It's not yet known what happened to her during the 18 days she was missing for. But for now, there is simply enormous relief that Cleo has been found. Chloe Keedy, ITV News.
Still to come, pressure grows on Yorkshire Cricket Club over the racist abuse suffered by Azim Rafiq, and
you have no authority here, Jackie Weaver.
How Handforth Council's trying to move away from its toxic past. First, the row over the Conservative MP facing suspension over cash for access. Owen Paterson was found to have lobbied ministers on behalf of 2 companies who were paying him. Later today, MPs will vote on whether to approve that ban. But the Deputy Labour leader accused the Prime Minister of scrapping the independent process into parliamentary standards, saying in no other profession could somebody be found guilty and just have their mates vote them back into the job. Boris Johnson said Mr Paterson had a right to appeal. Our political correspondent Romilly Weeks joins me now. Talk us through this developing story, Romilly.
Well, the debate on Owen Paterson's suspension is due to start shortly in there, and it has become a very hot political potato. It has never been the case that MPs have overturned a suspension recommended by the Standards Commission. Today, Tory MPs will try not just to pause Owen Paterson's suspension, but also set up a process that could lead to the standards watchdog being disbanded altogether. It led to furious allegations of sleaze from Labour's deputy leader, who's standing in for Keir Starmer, who's still isolating.
In no other profession in our country could someone be found guilty by an independent process and just have their mates vote them back into the job.
Owen Paterson, a former minister, was found guilty by the watchdog of what it called an egregious case of paid advocacy for lobbying on behalf of two firms that he was being paid by. The Prime Minister has indicated that he's supportive of Mr Paterson and believes that he was denied fair justice.
The issue in this case is whether a member of this House had a fair opportunity to make representations in this case, or whether as a matter of natural justice, our procedures in this House allow for proper appeal, Mr Speaker.
It is likely that this will get voted through this afternoon, with Tory MPs being told to support it. That will be a victory for Owen Paterson's supporters, but it will be a victory that will leave the system for investigating MPs, for keeping them on the straight and narrow, in complete and utter disarray.
Romilly Weeks, thank you. The Chancellor Rishi Sunak has promised to turn the UK into the world's first net zero financial hub. He told the Climate Change Conference in Glasgow that the public and private sectors need to invest in protecting our planet, and companies will soon need to publish a plan for how they will decarbonise and transition to net zero. The chair of Yorkshire Cricket Club is to be questioned by MPs over allegations of institutional racism. The claims were brought to light by the club's former player, Azeem Rafiq, who will also give evidence in the Commons later this month. A report found that the bowler had been a victim of racial harassment and bullying, but it's since emerged that the club had dismissed some of the language used as banter, which has led to mounting pressure on the board of directors to resign. With the latest, here's Carrie Davis.
He was trying to make a career of cricket at Yorkshire. When he should have been focusing on his game, Azeem Rafiq was subjected to racial harassment and bullying, which he says almost pushed him to suicide. Something the club's own investigation accepts. Yet the report defends the use of a racial slur as banter between friends. Former England international Monty Panesar believes Azeem's allegations weren't a priority.
I think they just, didn't, take this very seriously. If he was in another organisation, that word was used, even the P or the N word or any racist term, you would potentially, be sacked.
But no one was punished for what Azeem endured. The club's response has sparked a furious reaction from the Health Secretary, Sajid Javid. This is not banter. Heads should roll at Yorkshire County Cricket Club. If the England and Wales Cricket Board doesn't take action, it's not fit for purpose. A view shared by other cabinet ministers.
There's no place for racism at all in this day and age. It's surprising to even be having the conversation. So I think the Health Secretary is absolutely right about this, and I trust that the right and proper action will be taken.
Club chairman Roger Hutton will face MPs at a parliamentary committee later this month, where there should be tough questions, according to one former England captain.
When Yorkshire County Cricket Club turns such a blind eye, such a deaf ear to the complaints, not only from one of its former players, but also to the game and society at large, you're basically giving yourself a problem, more of a case to answer as things go forward. Does cricket look like a game for all in Yorkshire if you're a young Asian kid at the moment? After today and yesterday, probably not.
The ECB has apologised for the matter not being resolved and says they will now work quickly on their own investigation. But the damage has already been done for Azeem, who says, "No one believed me. No one listened. Everyone tried to protect themselves and left me all alone to fight. Time for the full truth. Carrie Davis, ITV News.
Good news for Next in the run-up to Christmas. It says it's experiencing another jump in sales, with takings for its third quarter up 17% compared with 2 years ago. And the supermarket chain Aldi will open 15 new stores across the UK, creating hundreds of jobs. New locations will include Edinburgh, Orpington and Poole. Finally, in the week that saw Facebook's parents' company change its name to Meta, a rebranding closer to home, Handforth Parish Council says it's changing its name after its explosive online meeting made Jackie Weaver famous but left its reputation in ruins. Faye Barker explains.
Unless we are prepared.
Will you please listen?
The most talked about council meeting ever.
You have no authority here, Jackie Weaver.
If you disrupt this meeting, I will have to remove you from it.
You can't. The heated exchanges of a Handforth Parish Council meeting were viewed more than 6 million times earlier this year.
Read the standing orders.
Making a star of Jackie Weaver. But today she told ITV News many of these meetings had gone a similar way, so change was needed.
I think it was a really good idea for the council to kind of relaunch or rebrand itself. Because there's no doubt about it, it had gone through a very traumatic period. The members that were challenging have now all left. They have some new members, and the council is just going from strength to strength. And of course, the name kind of reflects that.
The name change is from Handforth Parish Council to Handforth Town Council, and it's a fresh start for the Cheshire town that wasn't entirely happy with how it was being viewed.
Now, with a population of around about 6,000, we decided it was better to go for Handforth Town Council, leave the toxic Handforth Parish Council behind, and then carry on with the work as quietly and efficiently as we can.
Whilst the hope is the council can carry on quietly, they do, of course, have a...
Yes, I'm afraid your screen isn't safe over Christmas. There's a few things coming up. What can I think of? Celebrity Mastermind. That's been recorded.
There is quite a long list, and not forgetting switching on the Handforth Christmas lights. Faye Barker, ITV News.
Who better? Lucrezia's here with tonight's evening news from me. Bye-bye.